The National Consumer Commission is urging the public to return certain McCain sliced beans and Spar stir-fry products to retailers for a refund. Of course, they've experienced some challenges. Let's go straight into the story to find out what the issue is. We're joined by the Acting Commissioner, Thezi, Mabuza. Ms. Mabuza, good evening to you. Thanks for your time. So what's the problem with the products that you have identified?
The products that had been identified, we've been told by the supplier that they had already received complaints from some of the consumers wherein the products had some remnants of glass. And they had 5 complaints up to so far, but then they had quarantined some of the production, but then some had already left their warehouses and then they were in the hands of the consumers.
To be clear, which products are on this list?
The products, Katie, that are on the list, we're talking about your 1 kilograms of your green beans, the sliced green beans, 750 grams also, 750 grams, and then you also have your 250 grams of the Spar stir-fry French.
What do we know about what led to this incident, and also are these products manufactured in the same factory?
Yes, in relation to the products, what we know is that they were manufactured in the same factory, and then something went wrong within their production line that they are still trying to find out exactly what had happened. But then from our conversation with them is that a light bulb exploded and so forth, and then it found its way into the consignment that they had. They had quarantined some of them, but then they did not realize the magnitude thereof in relation to the recall or the products that were at hand.
As far as you know, Ms. Mabuza, do you have an extent of just how much of these products would have been widely available to the public? And, is there perhaps a certain time frame from which people who have bought these products would then be looking at in order to check whether they're some of those that need to return them?
The products themselves were manufactured in July, but then what we were looking at as well that we want the consumers really to look at, because the list is really kind of like long, but then it's those products, especially your stir-fry, will expire, or its best before date starting in December this year, and most of the green beans, it will be in January next year. So instead of the consumer sometimes really trying to find out those in terms of now the barcodes and all that, really I think for now what will be safe is just to look at those that were manufactured from July last year, 2021, and then just take it to the store. But then we don't know the magnitude in relation to the number of units that are at the hands of the consumer. So because now it's a fast-moving goods, we are working with the suppliers just to make sure that we alert consumers before we get any other people that are compromised or people that will get hit, just to return them as quick as possible. So in terms of the uplifting the numbers, it's not really clear for now.
Of course, it is also quite a serious health and safety issue. From the 5 complaints on which this recall has now been based, were there people that have been hurt as a result of this?
Kathy, not at the moment that we know of. We only know of the complaints as being informed by the supplier. But the tricky thing about food is that sometimes having the causal effect is very difficult, because now if you find something that presents as glass, and you know that sometimes when we're buying frozen food, some of us will break the value chain, and then it will get defrosted, and then you put it again in your fridge, and then it crystallizes with that ice. Then you don't know whether it's glass or ice, and so forth. So that is the most difficult part. But then again, it's when then you have consumed something, and then either maybe in your stomach or your esophagus, or maybe in your tongue you get these particles and then you start bleeding. You ask yourself what happened. So the reason of having a recall actually is to assist the consumers that if they have maybe sustained any injuries after consuming maybe food or something and they don't know what it is all about, then that would give them shed light to say that, oh no, I had this green beans maybe, and then that's why maybe my tongue was bleeding and all that. Then it gives you that causal effect for you to link so that you can get the necessary help, especially because in these instances when there is harm arising from consumption or use of a product, the supplier is liable. So we want consumers to be able to have that causal effect and then to take the necessary steps so that they can get assisted or to complain.
Ms. Mabuza, did you find that, the companies, and McCain that is, that it was honest when it came to disclosing what had happened? And do you think that these products should have been sold when there was already a consignment that had been set aside, with the company knowing what risk then had been posed due to whether it's the burst of a light bulb or whatever it is that may have happened?
Okay, this is actually what is concerning, because looking at what had happened, one would have thought that it would have been wiser to really quarantine the whole batch. But it could be that maybe just in terms of oversight or so, that it was actually picked up at a later stage. And then when they had picked up that consignment that they set aside quarantine, some of those remnants would have been in another consignment, because we really don't know what is the production line and how big the containers are in which they would store the green beans and all that. So that is actually what we're thinking, that maybe kind of like the laxity when it comes to quality control could have been what had caused all this, to say that maybe after this investigation or after we have received their full report, we would be able to determine whether this is a matter that we would want to follow up in terms of now maybe a proper investigation or so. But in this instance, what is a priority is the recall, and to get as much information as possible, uplift those goods from the consumer's hands as quick as possible before we get any injuries.
And that's really the issue here. You know, it's about accountability and ensuring that the interests of consumers are protected at all times, because once these goods reach the shelf, they come with a certain guarantee of safety. Are we going to see the company being held accountable on this front here?
Kathy, we want to make sure that consumers are protected. The information that we would have before us in terms of the truthfulness and maybe the steps that have been taken, because the responsibility also of the supplier is to tell us what they would have done to have averted this better, or maybe in terms of their quality control, what are the processes? Because an investigation, it's not there to really punish the supplier, but is to find out what went wrong so that in future it can be mitigated better, so that we don't end up with such a situation. But I would think that from our side, as well as regulators, in terms of the processes that are being set for the production companies, especially when it comes to food, it's something that I think from our side as government, or all the entities that are involved, we have to really do better. Because when you look at what had happened from the previous quarter, when you're looking at September last year up to so far, we had like 4 serious major recalls that may actually question or kind of like cast a shade on our production line, wherein we tend to compromise our brand as South Africa in terms of the production of food and also the quality thereof, wherein, especially with the markets wherein we export some of these products.
Thezi, Mabuza, let's leave it there for tonight. She is with the National Consumer Commission.